Meeting is being recorded, and I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, ready? Should be. Yeah, just do let me know if you can see that.
Yep, it's just fired up.
Okay, Jazakumullah. We're well into our season of talks um, in Sanato Tijarat. What's going on now? It's disappeared. There we go. Obviously, we are on the third talk from Rehan Saab, who's an expert in finding work, recruitment, LinkedIn, and so we're lucky to have him again this evening, mashallah. So I just wanted to also remind you that we've got the next week's speech is around how to make a winning business case. Well, well, it's on entrepreneurship. It may switch around a little bit, but thanks for joining. And today's talk is going to be about how to interview, optimizing an interview, and winning the offer. And Rehan Saab is, if you haven't heard him before, he's brilliant with many years of experience. And so over to you, Rehan Saab. I will make a note of any questions at the end. We can go through any questions or do type them into the chat. Other people may be able to answer as well. Assalamu alaikum, Rehan Saab. Why don't you take over the screen and say salam? If you're on talking, you're on mute.
Give me a second. I'm just trying to get set up. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Um, Let me just try and get my stuff together.
No problem. Whilst you're doing that, Niab Saab, is next week's talk still how to make a business plan? Because I think there was something similar to that a few weeks ago by Jahangir Saab.
We will confirm midweek, inshallah, what the actual thing. There will definitely be a talk. We'll confirm that.
So if there are any regular listeners, then do put in the chat, if you think if there are any topics you want us to bring into next season, if there are anything on entrepreneurship, on career guidance, on whatever topic you think that you want some information on, just put it in the chat and we can include that and find a specialist speaker.
And likewise, when we do the surveys towards the end of each session, if anybody has any particular ideas or things that you feel are relevant to the current date and time, then please feel free to put those in there. We'll certainly try and line up some presenters for that.
Thanks, Rehan Saab. It's over to you.
Okay, great stuff. So can everyone hear me? Can everyone give us a...
Yeah. You might want to just swap your presenter screen around. You're sharing your presenter screen at the moment.
Oh, give me a sec. What's going on here?
If at the top of that share, if you just click the switch displays, it'll. So if you share that again and then just click at the top of your screen where it says switch display once
Okay,
you're in presentation mode.
let's just try it again. So I've got my PowerPoint. So I'm sharing now. So where is that? Switch
So
display?
if you go into your presenter mode,
Yeah, I think I'm there.
so you're sharing your main desktop PowerPoint. So if you hit F5 to go into presenter mode,
5. This is the Mac, by the way.
okay.
Oh dear. Let's.
There's a little icon down at the bottom.
Little icon to the right-hand side at the bottom next to the slider, to the
I'm
left-hand
there.
side of the slider at the bottom.
Okay, I'm stuck.
And I'll just highlight it for you on the screen. There. You click on that one there.
Where?
If
Oh,
you,
there. Okay. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Does that make a difference?
Okay, now that's perfect. Now at the top, you see where it says switch displays?
It doesn't say that.
Swap displays at the top.
it
top
just
left.
says stop screen share,
No,
continue
no,
to share.
no. Let me just highlight it for you again. If you this one here.
Okay, cool. Oh, here we go. Yeah.
There we
All
go.
right.
Perfect.
Is that better?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, cool. So you can actually see my entire screen at the moment.
Yeah. So just
Oh,
on that window screen, it says continue to share. Just click on that.
okay.
Wonderful. Jazakallah.
All right. So you don't see the other slides, right? You just see the main.
Correct.
All right, cool. Okay, after that little glitch, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Welcome to today's training, which is going to be focused on interview mastery, which is um, the main focus of today's session. Most people fail here. The statistics show about 47% of individuals actually fail at the interview step. So the whole purpose behind today's training will be to help you to learn how to win the offer itself. So this is we've been doing a series of employability sessions to help members of the Jamaat. We started with CV mastery, um, how to win craft a winning CV, and then we moved on to LinkedIn and job searching. And then after that, we're now focused on interviews. Just a disclaimer again, nothing that I'm expressing here in this presentation. It's solely my own words, my own opinions, and it doesn't represent the opinions or position of any organization. And by following this advice today, nothing here guarantees you a job or an interview. However, I do hope, inshallah, that it'll help you to increase your chances of success. The reality of the job market at the moment, we've seen that there's been a fall in vacancies. There's been, I think, 39th or 40th consecutive decline, according to the Office for National Statistics. Unemployment is rising. Agencies are reporting stagnation in pay and slower permanent hiring. Graduate roles are really declining as well, and the market is just getting tougher. But for smart job seekers, there's still opportunities to stand out. So that's the good news. Now, why this series and now? The market reality. Most CVs are scanned for about 7 seconds before they decide to jump in and dive in for a more in-depth view of your CV. So if your CV doesn't stand out clearly, it's not going to shortlist you for an interview. 95, 9,500 or 11,000, 10 to 11,000 applications per minute on LinkedIn at the moment. And 47% of interviews, interview failure rate. So a lot can go wrong in an interview process, but with the right kind of guidance and the right frame of mind, you can make things work and be successful. Right, so the Get Hired series is 3 recruiter-led masterclasses to help you launch your job search, stand out, and win offers, inshallah. And as I mentioned before, we've gone from CV mastery to LinkedIn optimization and job search, and now we're on the interview masterclass session. Myself, I've worked in recruiting and talent acquisition for over 15 years, and I've built teams across 18 different countries globally. I've worked with big tech organizations and smaller organizations, so I have an understanding of what they look for. In terms of how to maximize your success, I always, in all of my presentations, ensure that I do mention this because preparing is very important, but making sure that you're spiritually set up for success is even more important as well. So don't forget, praying to Allah for success in your daily prayers, performing nawafil istikhara prayer. Istikhara is not just for getting married, it's for any important task. You're asking Allah from al-ghaib, the unseen, to help you because you don't know whether you will land a job with a company who has a completely toxic environment or manager that's absolutely horrible and doesn't help you grow. So only Allah knows best. So sometimes you want something in your heart really badly, and maybe it's not the right thing for you. So again, prayer is really important there. When it comes to interviewing, reciting the prayer of Hazrat Moses alayhi salam from Surah Taha, I've mentioned the chapter and the verses there. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Oh my Lord, open up for me my chest and ease for me my task and loosen the knot from my tongue. This is an important verse of the Quran so that they may understand my speech. This prayer, Hazrat Musa recited before he went to deliver the message to Pharaoh. And the thing is, I've noticed this prayer is very effective for tabligh. It's very effective for interviewing as well. And I've noticed anyone that has actually recited this prayer, as well as made sure that they've ensured that they're prepped properly and they've done other things as well that are important in terms of prayer and sadqat and letter to Hazur, they perform really well. And we've also got here writing letter to Hazur, so definitely get that in there. The prayers of your Khalifa is really important, but Hazur wants to know that have you prayed for yourself as well? So that's important too. And then giving sadaqah and engaging yourself in Jamaat activities is really, really important. I just want to say sometimes the whole interview process, the job searching process can be really, really, really daunting. It can be demoralizing. It can be very difficult, um, especially if you're not working and you need to still pay the bills and you have responsibilities. So it can be a bit of a drain as well. However, with complete optimism, engaging yourself in prayer and taking regular action, inshallah, you will be successful. Okay, now diving into the first slide, most candidates who get interviews are very capable. You are very capable. But most candidates who fail interviews, they fail because of the lack of structure, clarity, and evidence that they provide at the interview. It's not their own skill. It's more structure, clarity, and evidence. What I want to dive into now is talk to you about the three phases of an interview process. So we will go through the phase one, two, and three. Phase one is more the pre-interview phase. Then we'll jump into the actual interview itself, and then we will jump into talking about post-interview and what you can do. So, pre-interview, how can you win before the interview even starts? Okay. What I want you to know is that interviewers are well prepared. Okay. They're prepared before you even have your first interview. They have scorecards ready. They know what they want to test you on, and they know what a good answer looks like. So, based on a scorecard, they have calibration guides. We have calibration guides on the other side of the fence when we're hiring and interviewing. And we're carefully listening to what you're saying to us, what stories you're telling us about your past experiences, listening to that, and then we actually will uh, um, score or measure based on what you're telling us. We're looking at the core competencies of the particular role. We're looking at questions that we already have available to us. We usually have an interview bank of questions, and we have a hiring justification template. These are the things that the hiring team do to ensure that they have this in before you jump into that interview. And what we want to know and what questions we're really asking ourselves is that can this person do the job? Number one. Number two, can I defend hiring this person? And number three, will this person succeed in our environment? If it's a large technology organization where there's a lot of ambiguity, we're scaling, there's a lot of complexity, then we look at those kind of things. Smaller organizations may look for similar as well, especially startups. It can be less structured. You could be thrown into the deep end. There can be a lot of different nuances depending on which company you decide to apply to and have an interview with. But again, we're looking for the same kind of things, but there are nuances as well. Your job should be to help the decision maker, the interviewer, make the decision easy for them. Okay. Don't overcomplicate the interview process. Now, how can you do that? Smart preparation will involve around a couple of hours. Look, it really, really depends on the organization that you're applying to. If you're applying to an Amazon or a Google, you need about 2 or 3 hours of preparation, maybe even more. Um, it's not panic mode that we want to go into. You have to be really, really prepped, very intentional with your interview preparation. So if it's another type of interview, or if you've done a lot of interviews, then you will be more in the flow of things. You will know your actual stories, your past experiences. You will already have all of that mapped out. But I'm talking about for someone that is just diving into the interview process from the very, very beginning, and they're unprepared, they have unstructured answers, or they don't even know where to begin. So you're really looking at 2 to 3 hours of preparation for setting yourself up for success. In terms of step one, it's going to be role deconstruction. So that will take about 30 minutes. What we're looking for is diving into the job description itself, look at 5 skills, the top 5 skills being asked, the top 5 responsibilities, and the top 3 behaviors they're looking for. In fact, I would actually even add the top 5 behaviors they're looking for if you're going to a larger tech company. Um, so things like ownership, collaboration, leadership skills, etc. So look for, um, let's say, evidence within the job description itself. Now, I want you to take a step back with me as well, and let's just think about this. Before you have the main interview with the hiring manager, you will probably have a screening call with the recruitment talent acquisition professional within the organization. They're there to ensure you are the right person, you have the right skills, and um, are they going to be confident? Am I confident in pushing you forward to invest the time of our leadership team of maybe 2 to 5 hours? Will you be able to get through that process and not waste any time for us? Do you have those skills? So I'll be asking those questions to you at the recruiter first interview with you. But what I want you to do is use that recruitment interview to gather um, important information and data before you even jump into that interview process with the hiring team or the hiring manager. Ask clever questions at this stage about the team. Ask questions about the pain the team is currently experiencing. What are the challenges? Why this role is even open? Is it a backfill or a new hire? There's a lot of questions you can ask, intelligent questions at this stage to ensure that you're gathering information for yourself as well. So, for example, if it's a backfill means someone has left the organization. Okay, you may want to ask why have they left the organization? Um, is there something strange happening in the background within that organization? Um, Again, in terms of challenges, you can unpack critical information that will help you to set yourself up for success within the interview itself. So the recruitment person, the professional, will have that deep understanding of the role and the team and what's happening. So all I'm saying at this stage is don't let that first interaction be a waste of time. Okay. Go in there, answer their questions, but also ensure that you are ready to gather information and intelligence yourself as well about the company, about the role, about the interview process. Okay. Um, okay, let's move on. So again, I've preempted myself here. So lots of questions about gathering information and intelligence um, with the recruiter, but this particular slide is more about gathering information even before you go into the any kind of an interview process, even with a recruiter. So I would go into looking at the company website. That's a no-brainer. Look at the career section. Look at um, look at the company mission, the values. Look at press releases. What's actually happening in the company organization. Really have a good look at their website. Then also go in onto LinkedIn. Look at other types of roles they're hiring for. You can look on LinkedIn to see how many people work within the organization as well. You could go and have a look at your hiring manager interviewer profile to understand what their background is, see whether there's any kind of similarities in your background to them, something that you can have a synergy with. So there's a lot of intelligence gathering at this stage you can do to get that information about the company. And don't forget, we've got AI these days. Jump in, which are with ChatGPT, Gemini, Google Gemini. You can go to Perplexity AI, ask it questions, specific questions, give it information about the role, the company, the hiring manager, insert that into any of these AI tools, ask it to think deeply, because when you do that, it will have a better model that it will use to go away and do the thinking and the data extraction, or pay for a 20 quid on ChatGPT for an enhanced version if you want to get that more, insight and intelligence on a particular company. I would do that myself personally if there was a lot at stake. It was a big company, and the rewards will definitely outweigh the cost ratio of any investment I'm making in that process. All right, I'm just going to have some water. Okay, next step. What I want you to do, I want you to build a story bank of answers to typical questions that you could use. Okay, that could be asked. So usually companies will ask you questions about a challenge, a conflict, how you manage that, a failure, your leadership skills or your experiences within leadership, stakeholder management, delivering something under pressure, learning from mistakes. So these are the different types of stories that could potentially come up, or questions that could potentially come up. So one example may be an open-ended behavioral question around, tell me about a time you failed. Okay. How would you respond to that question if you were asked it? Um, so we'll come back to that, and if I forget, remind me, and I can explain to you how you can answer that kind of question or the framework you can be using. But typically, uh, companies will ask you behavioral style questions. Again, with behavioral questions, they're now asking you to think about a time in from your past experiences where you have had to deal with that particular problem. Um, so then and the reason why they do that is organizations use your past experiences as a measure for future success, basically. So if you can demonstrate from your past actions and behaviors and outcomes and results that you have been able to um, uh, undertake certain complex tasks, or how you've actually handled a failure or conflict, and you can describe the whole situation and how you dealt with it and the outcome, then they will actually think to themselves, okay, fast forward this person into our organization. It seems like they are showing similar behaviors that we would expect our employees to actually operate within. And there may be some ambiguity, there may be some complexity. So again, depending on how you actually tell that story, um, it will depend on the outcome of the interview. So what I'm saying here is that behavioral questions are really, really popular within organizations. I can touch upon one other thing before I move forward on this. There are some companies that ask you um, hypothetical questions, okay? And I haven't created a slide for that, but just incidentally, organizations like Google will ask you what they call GCA, general cognitive ability questions. And they will just ask you a question about a problem or a challenge, and they want you to uh, literally think aloud and ideate and make assumptions and think of hypotheses and think of um, uh, two different ways that you can go and resolve or solution that problem. I'm not going to touch too much on that because I will focus on the behavior questions, but that is something, and maybe I can do something on that in the future sometime. So again, with behavioral questions, each story must work for multiple kind of questions. So think about different stories from your past experiences. Okay, the way we want you to structure it is to use the STAR technique. And STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. And if this is how we would like you to framework the answer, and I'll explain why. You can imagine a busy director working at a tech company or a startup. They've got lots of projects that they're working on, and literally they've just been pinged by the team that, hey, they have to go into an interview now. Their mind may be somewhere else on their own projects and challenges. And as soon as they leave the interview, they're going to go into something else completely. They may not actually sit and write up the results of the interview, what you're going through, etc., what you've shared with them immediately. They may not score your interview straight away. So STAR actually gives a decent structure that if you stick to this kind of framework, it makes it easy for them to actually type and write your answers and your responses into the system so that they can go back to your responses and make a clear decision on you as a candidate for this particular role. If you're not using a structured approach, it could be that you may confuse the interviewer with what you're saying. It may be that you may miss certain information that they would really need to make a decision on you. So this is why using the STAR framework is really, really important. Now, how to answer and not just what to say. So with the STAR and any other behavioral question that comes your way, the situation will always be the context of where and when did this thing happen? Okay, this particular event, this particular project, at which company, when did it happen? And then you will briefly talk about the task. And the task would be the actual problem or the challenge you were trying to solve. Okay. You would not typically spend lots of time or too much of the time allotted to that particular answer, just talking about the situation, the task, but clarity, context is really important anyway. So definitely share that with the team and the hiring manager or whoever's interviewing you. Then you're going to jump into the actions you actually took, what you did, decisions you made, trade-offs you considered. Okay. So this is probably where you'll spend most of your time, okay, within that particular answer for that situational uh, behavioral question. And then you will come into the final phase of that answer, which will be the result. What was the actual impact? What was the value you were able to add to the organization? And here we're talking about numbers, we're talking about outcomes, we're talking about what actually changed. Okay. So just coming back to this, there is one other actual thing I haven't added here, but if you're specifically going for a larger organization, larger tech organization, then I would use not just star technique, I would use a starry technique with an I at the end. And the I at the end would be improvement. Think about not just that amazing result you were able to achieve, but think about lessons learned and how you would actually improve that particular project or that particular outcome in hindsight of having done it. Okay. So improvement is a really important one because some of the bigger tech organizations will always ask you about that, and they will actually value someone that is always thinking ahead and thinking strategically. Okay, just to save for the time, here's a weak example. I mean, if someone asked, tell me about a challenge you faced, and you just said we had a difficult stakeholder and I helped resolve it. I mean, obviously that's not a good answer. It's a one-liner. Um, a better answer, maybe not a stronger answer, but a better answer would be we were missing a deadlines by 30% due to conflicting stakeholder priorities. I mapped decision ownership, reset expectations in a joint session, and introduced weekly checkpoints. As a result, delivery improved to 95% on time within 2 months, and stakeholder satisfaction increased. That's a better answer, maybe not the strongest for organizations that I work in at the moment, like Amazon. We would actually expect even stronger answer than that. But what I'm trying to get at to show you in a very limited slide and time that we have is that your answer should show the situation, the task you had, the action that you took, and the result with metrics and value you were able to add. And explain, um, you know, the clear problem, measurable, the ownership you took, and the impact. Okay, so what I've done here is just talk to you about a bit more about the total time you want to invest of that particular answer. So let's say you have a 1 hour interview and the hiring manager has 4 questions to ask you, for example, okay? And they're 4 behavioral questions. So if we reverse engineer this, we will be looking at something like 15 minutes per question. Now, that doesn't mean you will spend 15 minutes actually doing all the initial explaining of what you were doing or answering that question. That would be the total time, that 15 minutes of you telling the story and the interviewer jumping in and asking you challenger questions about um, what you had done or certain outcomes you have shared. So when we reverse engineer that way, situation and task, you're probably actually spending 20% of your time just explaining that. 50% of the time of your answer will be more the actions, and then you will jump into the results and what you were able to achieve. Okay? Okay, so common mistakes during interviews are talking too much without any structure, overusing the word we instead of I. We actually look out for this as well at Amazon because what we want to know as an organization is what you specifically did, not what the team did. If you tell us we did this and we did that, we will think to ourselves, okay, you did not own it yourself. You did not do this project, or you did not actually do these actions yourself. So we can't really give you the credit for it. It's the team, the whole team. What did you own specifically? What actions did you undertake? And what were the results of that? So using I did this and I did that. I know some people don't want to blow your own trumpet too much. You want to be humble and give credibility and share the results with your team. But when you're in an interview situation, you're not coming with your team. We're not interviewing your team. We're interviewing you specifically. We want to know what you did. And again, if you're just constantly saying, we did this, we did that, we won't give you credit for it, and you probably won't get the job because of that, perhaps because you didn't own what you're telling us you did. Talking about responsibilities and not the results is another thing that is a common mistake. So talk about outcomes, talk about data points specifically, um, forgetting the impact. Again, that's more around the outcomes and impact and data points, and not tailoring your examples to the roles or that you're interviewing for as well. Now, if the interviewer can't summarize your value in one sentence afterwards, you're probably at risk. So breaking things down easily for them to understand is really important. Some of the things I'm going to after the presentation, I'll come off the actual presentation mode, and I just want to talk to you about specific things as well and specific interview questions, but we'll go through that a bit later on. So let's say you get a really, really tricky question, um, and you don't know the answer. So what you could do is you could reach for a glass of water. So one thing is sometimes interviews are face to face, and sometimes they're video call. Mostly they're video call these days, but some organizations are doing face to face. If you go to a face to face interview and you are asked, would you like something to drink? Don't say no, please. Don't ever say no. Say yes, I'd love a water. That would be perfect. Because if you say no to that first invite by the interviewer or by someone, then it's almost like you're already saying no and you're getting into a mindset of no for yourself and also declining them. So accept that glass of water. And if it's a glass of water and you do come across a tricky question, you can always use it as a prop to reach over, take a take a sip or two, and that might buy you a bit of valuable time and clarity to focus an answer by. Now, the other thing is, if you don't know the answer, you can pause. I would always clarify the question. Clarifying the question is really important as well. If you don't understand the question itself, ask them, hey, is it okay if I can write down the question I've just been asked? Take the time to write it down. That will actually help your cognitive ability to start ideating and thinking about different answers that you can provide. So having that on paper will also buy you a bit more time to actually think through it. Um, Clarify the question. And the other thing is think loudly. Don't just go silent. I have been guilty of doing that myself in the past, but don't go silent completely, and that could be a really, really awkward silence. If it's a hypothetical question, make sure you are talking loudly and thinking loudly because they would expect you to do that in a hypothetical problem-solving style of question. Um, and if it's a behavioral question about tell me about a time when you did this, that, or the other, then still think about it yourself. You can pause, but then you can start thinking aloud as well, so they know what you're doing. You can explain your approach and don't panic. If you do panic, it's okay. Don't worry. It's not the end of the world. Take a few deep breaths and pray, okay? And have your trust in Allah. So if you make a mistake, own the mistake, explain the learning, and show the improvement you made, okay? Because interviewers are not there to reject mistakes, they reject the lack of reflection. When we ask questions at Amazon, tell me about a time you failed, and someone does not respond to us and say, hey, I never failed, we know they're lying. Because to be honest, everyone fails at something in life. And to be honest, if we didn't fail, we could never improve. We're failing from the very beginning. From the moment we're babies, from when we want to start to crawl, we keep on stumbling. When we're learning from crawling to walking, we stumble, we fall, and we learn from those mistakes. In the same way, when we are in a project at work or in any other type of organization, there is failure. If there was no failure, there would be no innovation. Okay? And failure is part of the process. However, it's what you do with that failure that matters. And at Amazon specifically, we want to fail fast and we want to understand what the lessons were learned and how we can move forward. So definitely think about failure stories. They're really powerful stories to tell. It will add credibility to you as well. Um, don't ever say I've never failed because we know you're not, that's not true. Everyone does fail at something. But I'll tell you a story actually. I was actually training someone, coaching someone, a candidate who'd applied to a role at Amazon. And I explained to them that earn trust is a very important leadership principle within Amazon. And with no earned trust, you will lack credibility. So talk about a failure where you were able to earn that trust. And he went through the whole interview process. He took my advice. I think he took it too literally. And when I was in the debrief at the end, the team told me that, hey, we can't hire this person. And I said, why? And he turned out that he told a failure that was a really bad failure, but something like, that lost the company X million pounds because he didn't do something specific because he forgot to do it. So again, the failure that you're going to share, I hope no one has actually done such a failure themselves, but the failure you will share is not something that has cost your whole company £5 million, because if you do, no one's going to hire you. Think about other types of failures that actually happen within an interview, like within the projects that you have owned, understood, jumped in there and mitigated against and made things better, built processes. Okay, where are we for time? Um, am I right?
We're running quite tight against the clock, so I
Oh my
think.
God. Let me just run through this really quickly then.
Thank you.
All right, so closing the interview properly. So most candidates that you miss this, based on what we discussed, you can ask the at the end of the actual interview, you can say something like, based on what we discussed, my experience in X or Y seems to be a good fit, aligns well. Very excited about the role. Is there anything you've heard today that you'd like me to clarify? Okay, this is really, really important. So let's say you've gone into that interview process, you said all you had to say, and now you're at the end. Don't leave that interview and because they will give you question, they will give you opportunity to ask questions. Ask them, is there any gaps or anything I wasn't able to cover that you would like me to actually provide more information on? Because if you do that, if there was something that didn't quite, let's say, hit home with the hiring manager, or there was a massive like gap that they're thinking, hey, this person didn't talk about this. They may actually tell you, and it gives you that chance to now jump in and talk about that specific task or action or skill set that you have that could make that difference of you getting the role. Okay, and this shows again you having confidence, self-awareness, and ownership. Questions that impress most interviews. You can ask, what does success look like in the first 6 months? That that kind of sounds to them, hey, he's already thinking or she's already thinking that they can see themselves in the role and they're really now looking at what the challenges and problems are. Again, the other question, what challenges would you expect? What differentiates top performers on your team? Um, there are a range of questions, but I need to now shoot through this. But again, having no questions, it's not good. All right. Having questions shows that you're assessing them as well as them assessing you. And then you don't sound too desperate that way either. Okay. Next is, let's have a look. Oh, let me just move this out of the way. Okay, so hang on a sec, I just need to minimize that. Okay, post interview, turn good interviews into offers. Okay, so there's just a four-step process that you could do, which is basically just sending the team a thank you letter. If you send us a thank you letter at Amazon, it's not going to really influence too much. Yeah, it's going to show your interest in the company, but we will base our results on the interview itself. This would just be like a little bit of an icing on the cake that just reinforces the fact that you are very interested. So thank them, reference something specific, reaffirm interest, and reiterate your fit. So thank them for kind of interviewing you, jumping on the call. Say you enjoyed specific discussing X thing, whatever it was. The role aligns really strongly with my experience in Y, and I'm excited about the opportunity to contribute. Please let me know if I can clarify anything further. In fact, hang on a sec. What am I talking about here? I think that was just a duplicate slide. Okay, this is around feedback and rejection mindset that I really want you to have. Let's say it's post interview and whatever the outcome is, if it's a hire and they want to make you an offer, it's all great. But if it's not a hire, then you want to go away with data and information, how you can make yourself better. Um, Not being successful for a particular role, it hurts. Okay, it hurts. I've been there myself. I'm sure a lot of us have been there. But if you don't know why you failed, then you're again in the dark and you don't know how to improve. So rejection is data. Look at patterns that can reveal the gaps in your performance, in what you've said to the team, and maybe ask them so that you can fix the gaps. Um, was it the structure of my answers? Was it the evidence? Was it the fit? Was it my confidence? What was it specifically that made it that I was not able to get this particular role or this offer?
Jazakallah, Rehan Saab. Brilliant, brilliant. If you've got anything to wrap up with, because I've got a few questions for you
Yeah.
from
Give me a
our
sec.
panel.
I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen. Um,
Okay, ready for the
um,
questions? The quick fire questions.
all right, go on then. There was
All
a
right.
couple of,
First one,
go
Muzaffar
on,
is
go on.
asking for a standard competency based interviews, how long should one take to answer the questions?
Okay. I think I've touched on that in the presentation. So the answer is it it really depends on how many questions they're going to be asking. Typically, they may ask 3 to 4 questions. Okay. If you're in a competency-based interview. Um, let's say the interview is for an hour. That's 5 minutes as an intro, 5 minutes at the end for your questions. That leaves what, 15 minutes? Just divide that. Let's just say we're looking at, I don't know, 12 minutes or something like that per question, or less than that. Um, I would spend maybe 5 minutes answering the question, 3 to 5 minutes answering the question, and then allowing your interviewer to jump in with questions that they may have to solve some of the gaps or some questions they have in their own mind. Some
Brilliant.
interviewers don't do that. Okay. Some interviewers will just ask you a question and expect you to provide all the answers. Okay. And other interviewers may expect you to just give a shorter answer and then they will jump in. Maybe you can ask them what their style is. Because if you were not to give all the information to an interviewer who is not going to really follow up too much, that you will be at risk of not giving all the information and data points they're expecting to measure you by. So my advice would be ask a question to the actual interviewer, but go for more detail than brevity. Okay, that's my
Okay,
answer.
brilliant. Thank you. Ihsan Zaman is asking, when you're talking about failures, when you talk about something that went wrong, he's asking, can the failure be of a personal nature rather than work related?
No, never do that. Okay, so the failure should never be a personal nature. You can't say, "Hey, I'm always late to work because of my personal failure of not waking up on time or something else." It should always be a failure around a work situation. They will respect you for that. Okay? Failure, I used to think when interviews asked, "What are your weaknesses or what your failure?" Talk us about a failure. I thought that's like a cruel question to ask, and maybe I'd ask the interviewer, "Tell me your failures or weaknesses first, then I'll tell you mine." But the thing is, ever since I joined Amazon, I've realized failure is really, really an important question, and it helps to build trust with the candidate who's interviewing, and it also shows your mindset. Now, don't forget, a failure question is about tell me about a time you failed or where something didn't go to plan. So, for example, let's say you're working on a project and you had set everything up for success and it was going well. And then halfway through, something changed. Something changed in that project that you did not anticipate. Okay. And that meant now the project's timeline has increased. Okay, which isn't great, but it happened. Now talk about how you actually like really address that failure, how you show transparency to other stakeholders within the organization. So, example, if you're working with a cross-functional team and the failure doesn't just affect you and your team, but it affects others as well, have you earned trust? Have you been transparent with others and indicated that to them so that with indicated that to them and not brush the failure under the carpet. Because if you brush the failure under the carpet, someone else is going to trip over it. And later on, it will come out like a can of worms. So, have you addressed the failure? Have you built mechanisms and processes to make things better? Have you learned from that and that narrative, that story of how you saved the day? Think about it in that way.
Brilliant. Another question is, should you shake hands with the interviewer? And if so, before or after or both in a physical interview, no doubt.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of interviews are virtual, but shaking hands is absolutely fine. There's no harm in it. Um, just be mindful.
It may be a lady that's asking.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very good question. Um, I think it's okay to tell them in advance that you don't shake hands. And if you talk to the recruitment team well in advance and explain that it's a religious thing, it's absolutely fine for you not to shake hands, okay? So, and people should respect that, okay? They should not hold that against you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with
I,
you. In fact,
I've been in situations. I'm just at work where they have a habit of hugging each other, and I've it's been a bit awkward, but I've literally had to say, sorry, I'm a Muslim due to my beliefs. I respect you totally. If it's a woman, it's got nothing against me trying to discriminate or anything, but I respect you, and this is why I can't do that. It is
we've got a
difficult.
couple of questions, Ryan. We've only got 30 seconds left. So this is going to be a tight one. And there's both Mubashir and Yasir Iqbal are both asking the same question, which is how do you answer the question, what are your weaknesses? What's the best example answer to share about weakness?
Okay, I think I've answered that question already.
Okay,
It should not
great.
be a personal one. It needs to be something that happened at work, but obviously not something that has cost the company millions of pounds, but something, basically the answer should show self-awareness that you understand that something has happened and that you would fix it. And usually these could be actually systemic failures within the system itself that you didn't foresee, and that you've actually gone and fixed this problem now. And that actually shows ownership.
Jazakumullah, Rehan Sir. Really, really grateful. Lots of great comments with your professional experience and yeah, lots of love coming up. So Jazakumullah, may Allah Ta'ala reward you
I'm not done yet. I
abundantly.
just wanted to really speak to, I wanted to talk about a couple of other things when actually answering behavioral questions. If I can stay on, whoever wants to stay on, I'm happy to stay on for a bit longer. Is that
Yeah, go for it. I mean, Jazakallah everybody for participating. Just to remind you, next week's talk is on, for those that are leaving, the next week's talk is on entrepreneurship. Um, and otherwise, happy holidays if your holidays begin. Over to you, Rahan.
okay? Cool. So I just wanted to, because I know this was the last topic, so just a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about. Um, okay, how many people have we got left on here, by the way?
Uh,
Can you see? I
Yeah, we
can't.
still have about 65 odd.
Okay, cool. All right, that's good. Okay, so it makes it worth my while to continue with this. So Jazakallah for everyone's time as well. I really appreciate it. Look, interviews are really difficult, okay, and they can be nerve-wracking, and also sometimes you just don't know how to navigate. Sometimes you don't know what you're doing wrong. You don't know how to prepare properly. So I wasn't personally able to prepare all the slides properly myself. So again, sorry about that. But I do want to give you some more information from some of my own experiences that I've had. Um, so the first thing I wanted to talk to you, I just wanted to go back on behavioral interview questions and how I would actually framework an answer and what good looks like and what I found myself from going into interview processes with hundreds of individuals trying to get a job at Amazon Web Services, the organization I'm currently working at, and the kind of clues and let's say positive things that I have seen that helps to get people a job. Okay. So when you're answering behavioral questions, the first thing that I look for, or the interviewing team looks for, is the depth and detail of your stories. If they're really, really short stories and you're going surface level, you're not really diving into the story and the project and the problem, that's just not enough context. That's not enough information for them to really make a decision on. So dive deeper into your stories. And that, what does that mean? That means you actually have to go away and think about your stories properly. And what does that mean? That means it's painful. It's not easy thinking about 10 different stories you could go and talk to a hiring team about, okay, and really mapping them out properly with with a star response. So depth and detail is really, really important. Um, on that particular topic of depth and detail, um, just I'll come back to that in a minute, actually. Complexity is the next thing I want to talk to you about. Complexity of your answer will actually tell us at what level or whether you're actually going to hit you're actually at the right level for this job. If this is a middle level job or a higher level job, depending on the complexity of your answer, we will know whether you're going to be absolutely suitable for it or not. What do I mean by complexity? Now, complexity to me or to the team might mean something like not telling stories where you're just solving a jigsaw puzzle, telling a story where you're actually solving a Rubik's cube, literally. So that adds complexity. And what do I mean by that? I mean, the more steps you have in that particular project or the more milestones you have, the more complexity there generally is to that particular story or that particular project you were working in. And that's music to our ears because we work in that level at that level of complexity. So think about um, think about that if you're again applying to a bigger organization or even a startup, they will like those kind of answers. Complexity can also be um, working cross-functionally across many different teams. So if you're just working in one team and it's just narrow, then there is some complexity, but if you're working across many different teams and you have to get stakeholder buy-in, that adds complexity to the whole process. So again, you can talk about that. That adds complexity. There can be geographical complexity. If you're working in one city or one country, that has complexity. But if you're working across many different cities or many different countries, that adds so many different aspects of complexity and cultural and uh, nuances in terms of compliance as well. So if you have those projects, you have those stories, talk about it, make it vocal. Another aspect of complexity, I would say, would be hierarchical complexity. Call out your customers. Who are you influencing? Are you influencing executives, C-level players, or are they interns that you're influencing, or are you influencing middle managers or other team members? At what level is your influence within the organization? So calling these things out, showing the complexity within your story can actually also help you to stand out and score positive points. Okay. What I'd also say is if you were to um, don't just okay, I'll come back to complexity again as well. I might touch on it as well. The other thing I want to call out is data points. If you come to any kind of consulting or big tech interview or other type of interview and you don't share any data, you have no credibility at all. Okay? If you can't say um, as a result of these actions, I was able to achieve this result, you don't have any credibility because you achieved literally nothing. There's always a way of adding data to your answer in terms of the result. And sometimes you can always guesstimate it as well if you're not sure. you can make a logical guesstimation of what that could look like. Okay. Um, I've made similar guesstimations myself. So, for example, on my CV, I've put down I've helped save my employer £2.7 million in direct by myself hiring individuals myself rather than going to externally. And then I have looked at how many hires I have made, particularly myself, what the compensation of those hires were, and what the agency fee would be for that. And then I have made that kind of a result. Are we on time? I've got lots of. All right. So,
Just a very slight gentle nudge because
okay,
it's
cool.
coming up to Isha time now.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'll
Yeah,
just wind it up now. Okay, there's still so much more to go into. I think I'll just wind it up. If it's Isha time, you need to go and do your wuzu and everything. So, how many people have we got left? Or
still got 60 people on here. Jazakumullah, everybody, for staying behind.
if you want a
Uh,
part two, then maybe we could jump on another call. I don't know. We can vote.
Absolutely. Just a quick reminder, Jazakumullah, for that, Rehan Sab. I mean, some wonderful, wonderful pieces of wisdom from somebody who does this every day, in terms of keeping things simple, in terms of, preparation is the key, making sure that you bring your human sides to it, be it a handshake, be it a smile. And it's okay to fail. In this day and age, the world that we live in, failure is part of growth, part of development, and brings reality to the thing. Above
Can
everything
I add?
else,
Oh, I think everyone's dropped.
please. No, still got a big chunk of people here.
Okay, another thing that I wanted to add actually, which is really important, and I've made this mistake myself, and it's one question where they start the interview with, "Tell me about yourself." And what people tend to do who are not prepped for this properly is tell their whole life story. And 30 minutes down the line, you're still talking about yourself. That's not what we want to hear. What we want to very, very quickly hear is how you can talk about your current experience, how that relates very quickly to the role, and add a few data points. Maybe go into your past very short, and then jump back into the future and explain why you're a perfect fit for the role. Okay, so it's the best way to actually answer that question. And again, your strengths in line with the job spec that you're applying for.
Jazakumullah once again to everybody for attending this session. We do have one last talk, which I believe we switched over a couple of weeks ago. So we've had the presenting a business case one already. So there's one I think which everybody's interested in with regards to how to set up your own online business and start selling online. So inshallah, we'll have that session next week. Watch out for the link. As normal, the link for this week's recording will be up in the next day or two, inshallah, with a playlist so that you can access all of the previous recordings as well. Jazakumullah for attending. Allah bless you all. Allah Hafiz.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum. You can connect with me on LinkedIn.